Hi there, thanks for coming back to the channel. The title for today's video is Should Social Media Accounts Require Verified ID? Keep watching and I'll give you my thoughts after the break. Hi there. Before we get into today's topic, if you haven't subscribed already, today's topic: should social media accounts require verified ID? Just to give you an explanation and some context, as I work as a content creator, not just for my own business, Marketing Fundamentals Limited, but also for the clients' businesses. So we create video and written content for our clients. We also manage their social media accounts, so we have access to lots of different social media accounts, and then because of that we see a lot of the different communication that takes place on platforms like Twitter, Google, not so much on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, obviously there's communication there, but that's not really relevant for this discussion. What can happen is, unfortunately, if you have strong views, and whatever those views are, you can provoke a reaction, and that reaction can come in the form of reasoned debate. Yes, it can, and that's fine. Absolutely great to have that public discourse on these social media platforms, but it can also come in the form of abuse. So certain groups are more susceptible to receiving online abuse. They may be women's groups or people fighting for equal rights, people with disabilities, and we've seen in the last 12 months, we've seen a lot of unfortunately, a lot of black footballers in the Premiership receive racist abuse online. So there's a justification for a debate around what kind of controls and what kind of verification people need to set up social media accounts. That doesn't mean to say that the whole of the internet would require you to have a verified ID. So there are public forums and there are websites where you can just leave comments and so on, and all of that perhaps should be open, and that's fine. And webmasters who control those websites can ultimately decide what sort of comments appear on their website. So if you submit, I'm going off a tangent, but it's worth just me explaining it to you. If you submit a comment that's abusive on a website, the webmaster has the power to decide whether that comment appears. And we've all seen that. You sign into websites, you might leave a comment, and your comment might not appear because it's been regulated or controlled for one reason or another. So that happens already. There is already that regulation. On social media platforms, people can create accounts, have no accountability for what they're saying and what they're typing, and then send messages and communicate with people they don't know in all different scenarios. So some of the groups that have received abuse online are people with disabilities, women's advocate groups, so people fighting for women to have equality in all areas of society. When they express their views, they often get some misogynistic abuse and people making threats and so on. And then we've seen in the last 12 months or so, Premiership footballers, black footballers, have received racist abuse online. So there is quite a lot of abuse. It's difficult to say scientifically what has prompted this abuse. Anecdotally, we may look at the decision of the country to exit the EU, and perhaps some of the xenophobia that was whipped up around that time has made people more likely to comment abusively. But let's face it, there's always been abuse online, but there seems to be quite a lot of it now, and some of it very unseemly and not very nice. So I think if there's a debate to be had, it's around making people more accountable for what they put online, because I ask the question, would people who write a lot of these comments, would they make those comments to the person's face? Usually no. Would they say them in a public place? Would they say them in the presence of the authorities, whether that's the police or anybody? Would they? And usually the answer is no, because in certain scenarios the same words that they're typing via keyboard would constitute an offence if they were uttered publicly, or they were directed at the person that they are directing their comments or abuse at. So there's the scenario in a nutshell. How do you cut down on abuse without impinging on people's freedom of speech? Because it's fine to disagree with somebody, it's fine to have a strong opinion opposing someone who's expressed their opinion online, nothing wrong with that. But there is a line, and when that's crossed, I think that people should be held accountable. In the UK, this whole debate has crystallised in a debate in Parliament, because there's been a petition initiated by an ex-glamour model called Katie Price. And I think, and I'll talk briefly about her. Katie Price is she was a glamour model. She was a virtual reality TV star. She's been in a number of different shows. She's been married a few times, and some people don't. Some people have a very strong dislike to her. So that has slightly derailed the debate that I'm talking about now. Her son Harvey, and he has disabilities. She seems to have positioned her request for a petition, and this petition is serious and has got I think 169,000 signatures, of which mine is one of them, and it's been debated in Parliament. We don't know the conclusion of those debates yet, but because of the spokesperson for this petition, I think some of the discussion around how it can safeguard people, because I've talked about obviously women's groups, women generally online are more likely to receive abuse. I've talked about footballers receiving racist abuse. There are also female MPs receiving abuse, people with disabilities, and let's not forget the children. Children are very vulnerable online, particularly because although they shouldn't have all these social media accounts until they're 18, often they do, and we're probably all aware of some children that are on Twitter and Instagram and so on, and they can potentially receive abuse as well and not have the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with that kind of abuse, often when it's prompted by nothing in particular. So there is abuse out there. How do we control it? This petition, I think, was a good idea to try and make people accountable for what they type online, because they wouldn't do that in person. They wouldn't go to a person and stand in front of somebody and say these things. In most cases, people wouldn't do that. So how do we control that? And I think that yes, the social media giants, the Twitters, the Facebooks, etc., should be more proactive in dealing with this. It's all very well saying, oh, when you get some abuse, block them. What you need to do is be more proactive so that you can facilitate people being, if they do cross the line, and not all criticism crosses a line, but if they do cross the line in one particular way, and I'm not going to sort of list all the potential forms of online abuse that would cross the line. That's not for me to do. That's for maybe legislators, lawmakers, and the social media giants themselves to work out what that checklist would be. But when people do cross the line, they should be held accountable, and if they need to be punished or fined or whatever, or removed or banned, or whatever the sanctions are, there should be some way of facilitating that. We can't. And I think that potentially bringing in verified ID, so passport, driver's license, national insurance in the UK, something like that, to hold people accountable. And I think if that was introduced, then a lot of this abuse would disappear within a few weeks. Within a few weeks of the new measures being introduced. So I think it is fairly straightforward, because most people would then think twice before typing and sending these messages, these abusive messages to people. What do you think? I've spoken for longer than I thought I would on this subject, but I do feel that something needs to be done to protect these abused groups, people who are receiving a lot of online hate. If you're just an infrequent or occasional user of social media, you might not be aware of it, but if you're using social media on a regular basis, as I do for my business and for my clients, I'm very aware that there's a dark side to social media in terms of people sending anonymous hate to people for no good reason often, and there needs to be some measures taken to address that. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you've liked this discussion. If you have, give me a like. If you want to watch another video, please click on one or two thumbnails. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being with me. I look forward to speaking to you in the next video. If you haven't subscribed already, thanks. Until the next time, bye bye.